Hello, Mr. Senior Dean. In this presentation, I'm just going to go over some of your responsibilities and your opportunities in your position. At the end of the lecture, I hope you'll understand, the general, what every officer needs to do, his responsibilities as an officer, and then, of course, understand your own responsibilities as pledge educator and as vice president, and then identify opportunities you can act on, and finally, outside this presentation, you'll synthesize your responsibilities and opportunities in one easy-to-understand description. So first, let's get started with just what all officers need to do. You guys need to hold office hours for 2 hours each week. This is something that can change, depending on what the Venerable Dean wants to do. But generally, that's the good amount of time for you just need to sit down. This is gonna be senior dean time, 2 hours to do whatever you need to do, grade, quizzes, plan for the weeks, lecture, anything like that. You also need to review policies in the Gold Book that pertains to your position. So any policies that the past senior dean might have written down, and most definitely the Gold Book. All officers need to have one-on-ones with the Venerable Dean, kind of keep in touch on what's going on, how things are going. You need to create your position budget and present it to the treasurer 2 weeks before the first meeting in January. Now, I know as I say this, that hasn't happened for this year, but that is usually what it needs to be. So it's either that or as soon as possible. You need to complete training, i.e. this, as well as attend the transition session in January, which has already happened. And then be at the chapter house 1 week before school begins in the fall and 3 days in the spring unless given good and sufficient reason for it. And lastly, and very importantly, prepare and send weekly reports to the secretary before the officer meeting. Not before chapter, before the officer meeting. That way the agenda can be made appropriately. At the officer meeting, you guys can look it over and make sure it's all good to go. And then you'll have a good running chapter meeting. And you'll be fully prepared too in advance. So, general oversight of just your own responsibilities, and this is mostly dictated towards your pledge training, but you're going to obviously need to hold weekly pledge meetings. Each meeting should be in 2 parts. So first part would be instruction, so you go over the week's kind of learnings, discuss it with them. It's usually best not to just do lecture format, but just to discuss with them. Obviously you'll be telling them a lot, but you'll be assigning them, read this out of the Pythagoras and then come ready this week and we'll discuss it, and you discuss everything with them. Following that, and maybe you'll take a quiz during then too, but following that, you guys go into business, and so that's basically like a mini chapter meeting where a couple weeks into the pledge program, you'll elect officers in the pledge class president, the trecretary, treasurer and secretary, and then the vice president. And they will hold their own meetings, and they'll use Robert's Rules of Order, which you'll teach them. And in their meetings, they'll talk about, their pledge project and anything else they want to do. Another responsibility is follow the pledge manual. It's been created. It's very well done. That's really what you mostly need. You'll actually see that from this presentation. It's going to be pretty short because a lot of the stuff you need to know comes out of the pledge manual or the Gold Book or some of those other resources that doesn't need to be replicated here. But there are some things I wanted to point out in this presentation. Big one too is hold each pledge accountable for chapter standards. The chapter doesn't really look for itself, or the chapter leadership doesn't look to hold them accountable, but you are like the main man for the pledges. So how well they do on their quizzes, how well they do in academics, how well they're just doing in the chapter as a whole is on you. You need to be the one man that's accountable, and that's what's really going to take up most of your time, and it's going to be most of your responsibility. Deliver and grade weekly quizzes, not a hard thing to do. Plan speakers for pledge meetings, whether this is every meeting or just every, so often. Have officers come in and talk about themselves, have campus officials come in and talk to them, things like that. Definitely plan pledge building or bonding activities, whether they're out of the senior Dean Gold Book, where there's some in there, or you just think of some of your own to kind of get these guys bonded together, usually without alcohol. And then ensure the pledge project is completed. This is something that is oftentimes dropped by senior deans, and they just blame the pledges for not doing a good job. But it's your responsibility to make sure that they complete it. Now the quality is up to them, but you have to make sure they complete the project. Some other responsibilities is just pledge materials. Although a lot of them have already been made up for you, you should definitely look and find and update the pledge manual regularly if there's just any little things that can improve it or anything you notice that is just not working well. Once updated, and this will happen before the semester, obviously. Once updated, you're going to print out enough copies for each pledge in advance. And you'll also make sure that all other materials are printed out in advance, like quizzes, any outside kind of documents that they may need. And always remember, not all the information they need to know is in the Pythagoras. There's going to be other information on the international exam that you're going to have to get, either off the acacia.org website or through our Google Drive or other resources. So just review what's going to be done in the international exam. Make sure the international exam is the most current one too, and then make sure that you get the information that's all needed for that. But the pledge manual should have all of that. Another last kind of category of responsibilities for yourself is the rituals. So you are the main planner for the rituals, including induction and initiation, while the Venerable Dean is the protector of the ritual materials. So he'll hold on to them, make sure they're locked and kept away. But when it comes to actually planning and then executing these rituals, it's up to you. So you need to plan to have the materials ready for the induction. You have, and as well as for the initiation, you need to, if you're going to use the Masonic Hall, which is the ideal place to do both of these rituals, you need to plan it out, talk to the Masons, make sure that we're good to be there and everything, and you have the key to get in there. Make sure you're posted online and informing guys of the rituals and getting as much turnout as possible, including if it comes down to the moment of making sure guys are texting guys to get them over and be there on time. Best policy with the pledges is, I mean, you can't force them, but basically say it's highly encouraged, almost enforced, that they come and stay at the house the night before. That way you don't lose guys overnight for some reason. And also you can make sure they don't just get plastered and then ruin the next day being hungover. Big one and obvious, but you're going to have to say it, is strictly follow what is described in the ritual books and review the ritual exemplification book on Google Drive. So you have the ritual books, you're going to follow them exactly, but then the ritual exemplification book made by Acacia headquarters kind of explains more in depth of why you're doing this, or some of the things that are maybe a little left vague in the ritual books. So review both those in advance. So as far as, every officer, you've already heard about planning, recording, and reporting, which is our management system for all officers. I'm now just going to describe each one in detail of your position. So as far as for you in this system for planning, you'll schedule speakers at pledge meetings, like I said. You'll work with the junior dean on setting up bonding brotherhood events, such as the ones in the Gold Book. Schedule inductions and initiation at the beginning of the term. Plan all this all in advance. That way we can tell alumni initiation well in advance. That way they can make it to it, and inductions as well. So we just kind of know what weekends they're going to work in advance when we make the master calendar. You also will schedule deadlines and check-ins for the pledge project in advance. That way it just doesn't come up to the end of the semester and you check in and it's like the pledge project's just nowhere near being completed. So set on your own accord times to check in, deadlines for them, like you guys, all right, whatever your plan is, I need you guys to set deadlines for having so much of the pledge project done. That way the progression through it. Recording, you'll have each pledge fill out a pledge record form before they're inducted. So as you're building your pledge class, you'll use this. It's either online at acacia.org, or you can get ones off of the Google Drive, physical ones that they can sign, and then you can mail off. I suggest you just get them on a laptop and go to acacia.org and get them to fill it out. And then, other than the pledge form, you'll need to have them, before taking the international exam, have each pledge fill out a member record form. So it's just an updated thing from the pledge form saying, all right, they're officially our pledge, and now we're officially going to make them a member. Now, why have them do before the national exam? Well, you just tell them, this is preliminary before you become a member, or if you become a member kind of thing. And you'll want to, as pledges come on and join, you'll want to update the member database with the pledges information, all the stuff, just phone number, major, emails, all that stuff. And then at the very end of the semester, when you get those international exams graded, you're going to want to enter the mean grade for the international exam in the program database. That's the way we can track what our grades looking like from semester to semester out of our pledge classes. So last one, reporting. Each week this is going to just be what you're going to report in chapters. So weekly you're going to report the academics. So how are you guys doing their classes? And really get specific. Like, did some guy fail an exam recently? Did the guy get an A? Things like that. And you, like I mentioned, you need to be heavily involved in these guys' lives and just know everything about them and be totally accountable for them, almost like a parent. So know everything about them. And of course, you're going to report the week's quiz scores. So how well guys did on their quizzes. However you want to do that, individually may not sometimes work, but maybe you just do a mean of the class or the high and low, something like that. And of course, just talk about the engagement morale. And all this stuff can happen either in active business or, why not just put it out there to the whole chapter with the pledges, a little bit of public shaming, because some people don't like that, but it really does make guys serious about these things, about their quiz scores and about how they're engaging with the chapter, and motivates them to go. Report weekly on what will be taught and accomplished for that week. Let the guys know where they're at and what they're going to be teaching, so guys can talk with the pledges about it when they're on the off time. And then, very importantly, hold a mid-semester, and this will be active business, hold a mid-semester pledge review process where we go through and we reevaluate all of them. That way we don't get to the end where we're voting on them and we're like, we don't actually like this guy. On that note, also hold one 3 weeks or at the minimum 2 weeks before initiation. Have another pledge review to make sure we're not getting guys in that awkward position where they're just about to be initiated and we find out we don't like them. Let's make sure we're totally in these guys before we get too far into that process. You do have some recruiting responsibilities, being connected with these pledges who are usually younger and who have friends outside of the fraternity, unlike a lot of members who have just kind of got really established in the fraternity. These guys are going to be a main source for building the recruitment or building our pledge class even stronger. So when they are first pledges, even when they're far into their pledgeship, always you are trying to get these to recruit. Obviously the emphasis would be at the beginning when they haven't fully got into the program yet. But under this, you're going to want to plan and facilitate with recruitment chairman a recruitment training session for the pledges. So when I mean recruitment training session, I mean you need to tell them, what are the things so when someone asks you what is Acacia, they're going to be able to tell them what Acacia is, and they're going to be able to bring out the highlights of Acacia, not just say, oh, they're chill guys, pull the chill racer, all that stuff. It's going to be like legitimate, like they know how to talk about the fraternity and know how to sell it in a way. Or that sounds bad, but it's just kind of like highlight the good sides as well as where we have potential. Work with the recruitment chairman to plan events and ways for the pledge class to double its size, again by the beginning of the pledge process. And each week follow up with pledges about any PMs they know, PNMs they know, and make sure the pledges are continuing to contact their PNMs. Now that sounds like the job of the recruitment chairman, but like I said, you're expected to handle all things life in Acacia with these guys. So you're heavily involved in making sure at the beginning, since you're not doing much at the beginning of the semester. You might be doing some planning for the pledge process, but you'll be mostly trying to build up the pledge class that you will be eventually teaching. So of course there's the other side, which is not really a big side in our fraternity, is the vice president side for the senior dean. Although you will be at times expected to help out. So as a second in command, you'll presume all responsibilities of the venerable dean in his absence. Very rarely does that happen, but who knows. As vice president, you'll most likely be asked to serve as the IFC senator, who meets weekly with the IFC Senate to discuss and pass new or update regulations and laws for the IFC. And like I said, there's no formal responsibilities for helping the venerable dean in his duties, but you should regularly offer your assistance. You can't just rely on him coming to you. Very rarely will a venerable dean do that. Always talk every week. Talk with your venerable dean. Ask him, what can we do? Can I help you make sure that this committee is getting work done, or making sure that this one project's getting done? And of course, you don't have to do anything hands-on. You just kind of he delegates things to you where it's just you're making sure things are getting done, because that's his position in the fraternity. He's just the oversight, making sure things are getting done kind of guy. So, not too many responsibilities. The responsibilities that you do have are important and are very encompassing, and we entrust you fully with those. You do come with some really awesome opportunities in the fraternity as senior dean. And let's go ahead and first talk about a couple ideas that are out there. Some are like planning an awesome pledge retreat. One year we went out up to Spokane and we did a paintball retreat where we stayed at a hotel and everything, and that was an awesome time. And then there's the developing the Cornerstone program, which I'll talk about in the next slide in more depth. Plan a team building exercise for the pledge class. Go to the WSU challenge course over at the rec, something like that, or in something smaller and simpler. Start a new tradition for WSU Acacia. Attend a leadership development event with the pledges. That sort of goes along with the Cornerstone program. Or facilitate an awesome pledge project for either or both the house and the community. So you can have them do two projects. One to improve the house, like build an altar for the house, or one that's just the normal pledge project where they do some sort of fundraiser or community service, or both. So Cornerstones, this is a very big program, very successful for a lot of chapters that do enact it, that really helps build good pledges that will become even better members. And I must have accidentally forgot to update the text on here because that text is wrong. But Cornerstones essentially is a member development program that can be extended not just from pledgeship, but all the way into the entire membership. But it starts with the pledges. So you first start with, if you want to get into the development, you start doing with the pledges. And really it's just about personal development. So getting these guys to write down their values, to write down goals, attend events, and it's not just leadership or scholarship. It's going to different like arts and cultural things, going to events and just being exposed to a variety of things to really, it's really the essence of what you get more out of than, so there's people that go to college, they get education, things like that, and then you go into a fraternity and you get some social activities and things like that, but this just extends it even further. Cornerstones advances it further where they just get even more out of their college experience. And so if you're interested in doing that, if you're interested in improving the pledge program, improving the chapter as a whole, this is one of those best programs for that. Look into the Google Drive for some of the Cornerstones. There's the manual, there's all kinds of different resources for Cornerstones in the Google Drive, and please talk to me if you want to get that going, as I highly encourage you to. So now that we've gotten through your responsibilities and your opportunities, not a lot, like I said, but you're going to go ahead and in the activity section of this module, you're going to make a little summary of your responsibilities and opportunities in one nice little paragraph without referring to this presentation or your gold book. Just off the top of your head, test yourself on how you're doing. And so I'll be looking forward to reading that summary of your responsibilities and opportunities. Thank you for listening, and I look forward to you having a great semester.